Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Ewart. It's Friday, October 21st. This is Africa 54.
Chad clashes kill at least 50 as people protest the junta dragging its feet on a civilian transition that was supposed to already take place. Mali slams France, accusing Paris of violating its sovereignty with alleged overflights and arming militants. France denies, as David Doyle reports. South African hip-hop and neo-soul artist Nyota Parker tells VOA's Heather Maxwell about her just-dropped release and performs 2 of its tracks.
Deadly clashes between police and demonstrators protesting the military's grip on power has claimed at least 50 lives and left 300 injured, according to Chadian Prime Minister Saleh Kebzabo. Paul Ndiho has more.
Hundreds of demonstrators turned out in Chad's capital, N'Djamena, and elsewhere on Friday to mark the date when the military had initially promised to hand over power. However, the deadline to hand over power is being extended to 2 more years. Prime Minister Saleh Kebzabo has also announced a curfew.
The transitional government that I led, following the grave abuses experienced this morning, has taken the following precautionary measures: to impose a curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. until order is fully restored in N'Djamena, Mondu, Doba, and Kumra.
The curfew is expected to remain in place until there is a total restoration of order. Kebzabo also announced the suspension of all public activity of major opposition groups, including the civil society coalition Wakit Tema. In a tweet, the chairman of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, called for an end to the violence, saying, quote, "I strongly condemn the repression of the demonstration that led to the people's death in Chad. I call upon the parties to respect human life and property and to favor peaceful means to overcome the crisis." Following violent clashes in the streets of N'Djamena between the police and the protesters, France, Chad's former colonial power, is condemning the violence, noting it featured the use of lethal weapons against demonstrators. The United Nations says it deplores the deadly use of force and called on an investigation into reportedly human rights violations. The European Union is also condemning the violence. The protest violence comes on the heels of a national forum organized by Mahamat into extending his power. The 38-year-old 5-star general took power in April 2021 after his iron-fisted father, Idriss Déby, died in power after 3 decades. He was killed during an operation against the rebels. Déby's junta had initially declared it would restore civilian rule after 18 months in power and had initially promised not to participate in the next elections. But as the deadline neared, a nationwide forum staged by Déby reset the clock. On October 1st, the conference approved a new maximum 24-month timeframe to hold elections. It also named Déby transitional president and declared he could be a candidate in the poll. Déby was sworn in on October 10th and later appointed a so-called government of national union, headed by Kebzabo, a 75-year-old former journalist and one-time opposition figure. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Let's turn to West Africa now, where Mali says it reserves the right to defend itself and is accusing France of undermining its sovereignty by violating its airspace and delivering arms to militants. France denies accusations. David Doyle has more.
Mali's foreign minister has said the country reserves the right to defend itself if France continues to undermine his country's sovereignty and national security. At the United Nations Security Council briefing on Tuesday, Abdoulaye Diop repeated allegations that France had violated Mali's airspace and delivered arms to militants in the country's north. He called for a Security Council meeting to bring to light evidence of duplicitous acts, acts of espionage and acts of destabilisation waged by France. Relations have soured between the West African country and its former colonial ruler since a Malian coup in August 2020. France, which has been withdrawing troops sent in almost a decade ago to fight an insurgency, denied Mali's, quote, defamatory accusations. Its representative defended the French intervention in Mali as fully transparent and said France had never violated any airspace. Mali's Minister Diop also denied human rights violations by the Malian army, which have been reported by the UN and other groups. Several reports accused the Malian army and Russian mercenaries over the killing of civilians and of suspected collusion with jihadists. Diop said the allegations were unfounded and warned against instrumentalizing human rights issues. Mali has faced instability since 2012, when militants, some with links to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State, hijacked a Tuareg rebellion. On Monday, 4 UN peacekeepers died after their vehicle hit an improvised explosive device in Mali's Kidal region.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Now, for more insight into Mali's discontent with France, I'm joined live via Skype from Houston, Texas, by Aristide Sidibe, a West African political analyst. Mr. Aristide, welcome back to Africa 54.
Thank you, Esther, for having me today.
So what's the basis of Foreign Minister Diop's sentiments, and he seems to be very angry with France?
Thank you for the question, and he has a reason to be angry. Mali has documented about 50 instances when France Barkhane violated Mali airspace. And Esther, let me take you back to 2012. When the first transition, when we have a transitional government at the time, after the separatist group overthrown much of the northern part of Mali. And remember, those separatist groups were out with jihadist group. It's not, and we have a French official acknowledging at the time, and one of the ambassadors at the time in Mali was fired the foreign minister in France of basically telling his superior in France that the fact that France is providing support to those separatist groups is not something that is sustainable, because those separatist groups are in well-documented partnership with Islamist groups. So this is something that has been going on for before the current transitional government took power.
And how do you explain, because across the region, the Sahel region, most of the West African countries also that have experienced political upheaval lately, the coups that we have seen, there's anti-French sentiments there. What's fueling this?
Esther, on your show, I've been saying for quite some time that the resentment is deep. It has nothing to do with the Russian. It's been boiling over the years. And you just had an element about Chad. What the reporter has not said, the French government stated that this is an internal affair of Chad. I mean, this is something, 50 people have died, 100 people wounded. So France has been supporting dictator across France's ex-colony for years. Mm-hmm. And that's fueling the resentment. That has nothing to do with the Russian. And one of the things that I've been saying for quite some time is the U.S. role in this. The U.S. need to separate itself from the French policy in the Sahel. And I'm glad that the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs is currently in the region, was in Mali a few days ago. They need to engage those folks. They need to make sure that they hear the cry of the people. Because right. France, the alternative is people do whatever they need to survive.
Aristide, we'll have to explore this a little further some other time. Thank you so much for your insight. Aristide Sidibe is a West African political analyst. The African Union Conflict Resolution Group is meeting Friday to discuss the war in northern Ethiopia and Monday's peace talks aimed at ending nearly 2 years of fighting. AU Special Envoy Olusegun Obasanjo is expected to mediate Monday's talks on the Tigray conflict in South Africa. Ethiopia's government says it has been invited to the peace talks by the AU and would participate. Tigray rebel leaders have only reiterated their commitment to the AU-led peace process. For the latest on the UN Security Council's meeting in Ethiopia, I'm joined by VOA UN correspondent Margaret Bashir. Hello, Margaret.
Good afternoon, Esther.
What are you learning about this behind a closed-door meeting by the UN Security Council on Ethiopia?
So this meeting was called by the African members of the Council, Gabon, Ghana, Kenya. They've been in there for about 2 hours, but it looks like it's just breaking up now. I see some diplomats coming out. The Ethiopian ambassador was part of this meeting. He was allowed to be there with them to represent his government. On Monday, Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed deep concern about the situation. He says it's spiraling out of control. There's great concern for civilians who are caught in these clashes, this joint Ethiopian-Eritrean offensive in Tigray. They seem to be making some gains in the area against the Tigrayan forces. Obasanjo was briefing the Security Council here in New York as well by video. He did the AU Peace and Security Council, as you mentioned a little earlier, and he gave the briefing to the diplomats here. They hope to get those talks started on Monday in South Africa. But with the Tigrayans on the back foot and the Ethiopians going strong, there's some worry among diplomats that maybe Monday won't happen. So we're just going to have to wait and see. And we're hoping to hear possibly a statement from the Security Council here in New York supporting a ceasefire, a return to talks. All 15 members have to agree on it, so it's just a little early to say whether that will happen today or not.
Margaret, the United Nations has really shed some, light on what's happening in Ethiopia. What seems to be the #1 concern of the United Nations regarding Ethiopia right now?
Oh, I think the protection of civilians, absolutely. We heard from the special advisor on the prevention of genocide this week. She said that inflammatory language, hate speech is being used in this conflict. That's a marker of trouble. And she's worried about political groups, armed groups, the language they're using. There's blogs calling for genocide against the Tigrayan people. So they're very alarmed about the direction that this conflict is going in.
Margaret, thank you very much for your reporting. VOA's Margaret Bashir reporting live from the United Nations. Ghanaian-born author and publisher Cadmiel van der Puige is the chief executive of the Voice of Africa media. His newspaper, The Voice of Africa, amplifies Africans worldwide. He also runs the Father's Haven Children's Home in Kenya. He joins me in the studio to tell us more. Cadmiel, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me, Esther.
First of all, what prompted this publication, The Voice of Africa?
So The Voice of Africa was actually founded by my father, Dr. Kinsley van der Puige, in efforts to change the narrative of Africa and the media.
And what's the most sought after content by the African diaspora here in the Washington, D.C. area?
Right, so we currently have 2 different types of audiences that we market to. Our newspaper is targeted more so to age demographics from 35, 65 and up. With them, they're looking for more so, news that's going on in the continents, so they still have a feel, being back home. We also have a digital platform which is targeted at age 16 to 30, and they like more so entertainment, so we deal a lot with celebrities and artists in that manner.
How are you able to fund the paper? Do you have ads, people placing the ads within the paper, or how do you fund it?
Right, so currently it's a passion that the family has, so we do fund it ourselves, but we have the help of some companies that we work with through advertisements to help us fund it.
Now let's turn to the orphanage that you run in Kenya. Why Kenya? You're from Ghana, and how many children are you taking care of in this orphanage?
Right, so just to give a little background story, I am a son of 2 immigrants, and they're missionaries as well. And they've always taught me the importance of giving back to our community. My father moved to Kenya 8 years ago, Kisii, Kenya, to start a church. He then met a man called Pastor Sagania, who had a family of 4, but he had 35 orphans living with him. And we took it upon ourselves, made our responsibility to make sure that those kids are their basic needs are being met, and then they're being set for the future.
So do they go to formal schools, and at what age do they leave the orphanage and go out and fend them for themselves as adults?
Right, so yes, we do have our kids in formal school right now. We have 35 kids, 31 are in public schools, but 4 of them are currently in private schools, getting ready for high school and transitioning to college. We just launched our program 2 years ago, so we haven't really had any kids transition from the orphanage because they're still at their adolescence of age right now.
So who pays for their school fees? In Kenya you have to pay school fees.
Right, so yeah, this program is funded, it's a church program and the Voice of Africa. So our church and the Voice of Africa and our family, my dad, my mom, and my brother are the ones who fund it.
Are you planning to do more, opening more, children's homes across Africa, Ghana, or some other place?
Of course, yes. My dad was an orphan himself, and like I said before, witnessing him and my mom giving back to the community has also, prompted my brother and I with a goal to open up a children's home in each country in Africa, and eventually want to expand to the entire world. So hopefully, we're able to make enough money, to do so.
So where exactly? I heard somebody say you were looking into Botswana and some other Southern African country?
Yes, so we just opened up one in Botswana, in Ghana as well, and Zambia. We have children's homes over there. More projects or more information on that will be announced shortly on thevoiceofafrica.com. But yeah, these are the countries we have as of right now.
Cadmiel, you are young and such an inspiration. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Esther.
Right. Cadmiel van der Puige is the Chief Executive of the Voice of Africa Media. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, Heather Maxwell speaks with hip-hop and neo-soul artist Nyota Parker. We'll be right back.
The search is on for Africa's best and brightest minds in finance, cybersecurity, technology, and anything digital, making social impact through cutting-edge technologies, innovation, and creativity in Africa. Out of 17,000 candidates from 50 countries in North, Central, East, West, and Southern Africa, only 3 will be selected from the top 10 continental finalists from Egypt, Nigeria, Ghana, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Cameroon. Join the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and its prestigious partners, including the Voice of America, when the 3 finalists are featured at the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit in December 2022 in Washington. Stay tuned.
In other news, the United Nations warned Friday that due to extensive flooding, a camp housing 75,000 Sudanese refugees will likely not receive any food this month. Namibia has provisionally agreed on a deal with the European Union to sell its rare earth minerals critical to the renewable energy sectors, according to the Mines and Energy Minister. Central African Republic's Constitutional Court President Danielle Darlan says she's not stepping down and that she intends to fulfill her commitment despite pressures to leave. Darlan was appointed in 2017 to a 7-year term. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce's U.S. Africa Business Center is convening its first annual Africa Digital Innovation Competition for African startups. VOA is working as a media partner with the Africa Business Center on this initiative. Out of 17,000 candidates in 50 countries across Africa, 10 finalists have been selected. And we're bringing you a look at each one. Today, we're highlighting Karim Amer from Egypt, whose startup Vice designed an application that uses artificial intelligence to help farmers combat climate change by remotely scheduling irrigation and fertilization for optimum usage.
is Karim Amir. I'm 29 years old. I'm co-founder and CTO of a startup called Visual and AI Solutions, or VASE as we call it. We believe the Africa Digital Innovation Competition is a great opportunity for our startup to showcase our innovation on a world stage and also get a constructive feedback from the esteemed judges and mentors we met across the stages of the competition. It was a great news for us to be announced as the champion of North Africa and one of the top 10 finalists in the competition. And I think it's another very positive sign for us that we are walking on the right track and we are actually tackling the right problem. I think we can all agree how big and vital is the agriculture market in Africa. However, farmers are facing huge challenges nowadays, including water scarcity, lack of access to scalable and cheap technology, and on top of that, climate change is making everything worse each and every season. To help farmers cope with these challenges, we are building an innovative technology called the virtual field probing, which is based on analyzing petabytes of satellite data using our uniquely designed self-supervised AI system. So our technology can have a huge impact on farmers' lives. We are helping farmers reducing their costs using our optimal irrigation scheduling and fertilization plans, and also services like early stress detection and prevention. In addition, we are also helping them mitigate the risks of climate change and reducing also their carbon and methane emissions. First thing I will do when I win the competition, I think, is informing our team and colleagues, and we are really proud of them, and hopefully we can celebrate together winning the competition.
Be sure to join us on Monday for a profile on Nigeria's Imodoye Abioro. And it's time now for Entertainment Report, and Heather Maxwell, host of Music Time in Africa, is here to tell us about hip-hop and neo-soul artist Nyota Parker. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Esther. Hello, everyone.
Hey everybody, Nyota Parker is a hip-hop neo-soul artist. She's here to talk about her music and her story. Hi Nyota.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Tell me, what is new with you and your music?
A lot of new things with my music, new collaborations, a recent album, which is like a deluxe album that I just dropped, called the Spectrum Deluxe Album. That's pretty new, as well as a new collaboration called Rudimentary.
I just cannot hate you or berate you for not staying true, cause that's all your thoughts, so like a thought will make you snort.
You talk about multiculturalism. Tell us what your story is, your background.
Yeah, my mom is Congolese, my dad's English, Irish, and I was born in Ireland, but I moved to South Africa when I was 5, and I grew up in South Africa until pretty much like 3 years ago, which is when I came to New York.
What brought you to New York?
Yeah, to expand my music, pretty much, you know.
By yourself, or did you come with your family? Or?
Just my mom and I. Honestly, we came here and we're like, we're gonna do this.
You know that you always gotta pace yourself, pace yourself, pace yourself.
So how long have you been doing music?
Since 2016. I was 16. It was like, I even remember it was like June when I first recorded like my first ever single.
In Cape Town?
Yeah, in Cape Town. Shout out to my engineer, Jay Loops. He's been engineering every single song since my first ever until like now.
What's the key to the captives and what's the stack to the lacking?
How's it like working with your mom?
I love it.
We have to say that because she's sitting right over there.
I love it. I guess. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I love it. No, I really do.
Yeah.
Because like we think very alike as well. She has my best interests at heart all the time. So I mean,
you're a team.
Yeah, she's always supported us since the beginning. So I don't like have to convince her. To, like I want to do music. Like she was already backing it.
Why you never see you on your own road? Why is it when I see you there's no growth?
So Spectrum, you sing about someone. Sounds like it's a specific person. I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about that.
Well, specifically that person would be hip-hop personified. Most of the message is also about, of course, not conforming to society and being just also vulnerable to who you are and like being an individual.
No, I just want to make my songs and end up being stable. I don't want no label sitting at no playing around table.
What about the song Pretend?
Pretend, I'm talking about just coming up in an industry where it's so hard for up-and-coming artists. Pretend is like on that journey of an artist, like, because the entire Spectrum album is like pretty much a journey of the artist, starting from, you know, being passionate to then having your doubts, and then at the end of it, you know, you're claiming what's yours and you're pretty much making that your affirmation.
Listen, I've been empty on the inside, no lie. What's the point of living when you've got no life? I told myself this a couple hundred times then.
Where do you want to be in 5 years, Nyota?
5 years, I will be collaborating with all of my favorite artists who inspired me. There will be Tyler the Creator, Mick Jenkins, Saba, No Name, Common, Erykah Badu, Nicki Minaj.
Too much, too much, too much. You gotta pretend, yeah.
Is there any message that you would like to say?
My message to the world is also just not to compromise. I say this like, you're starting off, just like do it.
Yeah.
Nyota, thanks for coming on the set, and best of luck to you.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, cause what's a fact to the factions, and what's a key to the captives, and what's a stack to the lacking.
Yes, and that was 22-year-old South African hip-hop neo-soul artist Nyota Parker. Let's keep an eye on her, and that's our entertainment for this week. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you so much, Heather. Be sure to join Heather Maxwell's Entertainment Report every Friday on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.
Of African First Ladies for Development met recently and elected a new president for their organization. This intercontinental organization seeks to leverage their unique position to advocate for policies that empowers women and youth. But questions persist. What about First Ladies who are not operating with similar visions or missions? On this week's episode of Our Voices, we will hear diverse opinions on this topic while sharing with you the voices of some African First Ladies. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.